When things go wrong as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the...
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. I'm your moderator, Omar Dunlap, and we have with us, of course, Dr. Mamdouh Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
And we have with us our studio audience. Assalamu alaikum. And today the topic is Shari'ah versus secularism. Shari'ah meaning Islamic law, and secularism, which has a pretty vast definition. But before going into it too far, I'd like to give it over to Dr. Mamdouh now for his reflections.
Thank you. If we define secularism, I will try to be as simple as I can, and everybody would understand it. Secularism is defined as the separation between the state, or the governing, and religion. They don't want them to work together. In other words, they say that there are some areas that are related to belief and religion, and this is the relationship between human beings and God. However, in governing human beings, we are not going to use any law from God to the human beings. We are going to use our own laws, man-made laws. So the separation between them is what is known secularism. And I don't know what's the relationship between the word itself, secularism, and the separation between the government and religion. This is, in brief, secularism. Versus Shari'ah, which is divine law, divine Islamic laws that are applied, that would govern everything. Before we get into Shari'ah, let me explain really how did the concept of separation, the concept of secularism develop. Human beings, wherever they are, I'm not going to specify whether in this country or that country, they have tested using religion to govern their lives. But they found that it's not working well. And if I were them, I would support this. Simply because the religion that reached them was distorted. Either the books were not kept, the message was not there, it's incomplete, or because of the missing things and the gaps in the religion. Not in the religion itself, but when the message comes to any messenger, from Gabriel, from angel to the messenger, and from the messenger to human beings. When it goes to human beings, it's distorted. Some of it is forgotten, some of them is lost. And the proof, for example, now, the Bible that's in the hands of people nowadays, it's in English and in other languages. And all of us know that Jesus did not speak English. The original source is not there. However, they try to apply this. And I think they are doing fine with this because it's not complete. There's something there. So they don't have full cover of that. And they have seen that the distorted writing of the Bible, which is, when a human being reads it, it's next to impossible to happen. When you read the Bible and you see the things, that some of the verses there, some are illogical. And that's why they said, to be on the safe side, we're going to put this here, and we're going to make our own laws. I think they are thinking in the right direction. However, when the final message came, the message of the Prophet ﷺ, which was kept until this moment, word by word, letter by letter, with all the illustrations that is mentioned in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, with the guarantee, 100% guarantee from Almighty God that this message is kept safe. إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. Indeed, we are the ones who sent down this dhikr, this Quran and Sunnah, and we are going to keep it safe, untouched, unchanged, and this is the case. Now I think if they know this, they should change from their first position, separating the state from the religion, and change their mind, because now we have a religion that says that everything in this life is included in the religion. It's 24/7. The amount of air that you breathe is in the religion. When the Prophet ﷺ said that when you are, if you are to eat and you are hungry, you eat, you make 1/3 of your stomach for, even your stomach, he's talking now, he's talking medically, right? He's talking about your health. When you eat, 1/3 of your stomach is for the food, the other third is for the drink, and the last third is for breathing. So even air is included in this religion. Everything is there. So now they have no excuse to say that secularism should work. Now and now let's compare between the two things. Let's say that this or these man-made laws are the best in the world. I will take this example. Let's say that the British system or the American system or the French system or the Japanese laws are the best ones. I would say that. But let's think of it deeply, and I ask everybody to listen and to make his own judgment. Now we have two comparisons. Try to imagine I am the manufacturer of this watch. I made it. I manufactured it. It took me, let's say, 200 years to manufacture it. And I brought the world the best watch. And now this watch is broken. Who is the best one to fix it? Is it the manufacturer, or is it another watch? If you have a watch, and now I'm bringing your watch to fix my watch. He is laughing. Definitely he should laugh. It's so ridiculous. So ridiculous. This watch cannot fix itself, and his watch cannot fix mine, because simply it's made by someone else. This is exactly the metaphor that I want to explain, to present the Shari'ah to everybody. This Shari'ah is made by the creator of human beings. He's the one who created us. He knows exactly what we need in this life, and he sent the guidelines in his books, especially in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. It is safe. It is memorized by millions of people. It's known, and now it can govern everything. So why would you look for a human being to fix the errors of another human being? Why would you do that? You have the one who created all these human beings. And now I think when this is clear, people see how ridiculous the idea of separating the government from the state. I think this is a simple explanation, and I hope we can continue after your comments or questions.
Oh, very good. Well, we'll get to those comments and questions, but we're going to take a break for right now. So don't go anywhere. You're watching Let's Talk.
The Philosophy of Islamic Law, a program for restoring belief and trust within Muslims' mind and heart, and for re-establishing a true concept about Islamic rules for others.
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Let's Talk. Today we're discussing the topic of Shari'ah versus secularism. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at some questions that we've asked some of our brothers on the streets and see what they had to say. We asked them, do you support Sharia law being implemented? And we also asked them, what does the word secularism mean to you? So we're going to see what they had to say, inshallah.
In your opinion, do you support Sharia law being implemented?
Well, I'm torn on the issue because on one hand, Sharia law is what sort of keeps us together as Muslims, and it's what we should live by. But in the world, things change. I mean, you need new laws to bring in, like, how to deal with technology changing. You need, like, it's not so precise on monopolies and economical things. So you do need to augment it with sort of more modern ideas.
Well, I don't know. It depends on what the limits are, I guess, because at the end of the day, it's not our country. So I think it could be, yeah, because we do have a lot of English. There's a lot of multicultural country, and there's a lot of people. So I think there should be some laws to, into England, because it's not only just English people. There's a lot of Muslims and other diversities and everything. So yeah, I think some laws. Maybe, yeah, some laws should be implemented, but I think there should be a limit on it as well.
We have to respect the law where we live, but at the same time we have to not forget our Allah law. At the same time, we have to respect wherever we go. Like in London, we have to respect. In UK, we have to respect the law of UK law. But at the same time, we shouldn't forget Allah law. At the same time, we have to follow Allah law. At the same time, so that's the most important things. Yeah, we have to respect the law of those people. We live with them as a brother, and it's really peace. I live here almost now 16 years. No one harm me. No one does any harm to me. Very nice people and very peaceful people. But at the same time, we try, even our leader, they keep advising us to follow our law. Them law. But at the same time, do not forget the Islam law. And it doesn't make any difference between Allah law and the right law.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but maybe, yeah.
Basically, I don't really know what Sharia is.
It's Islamic law.
The Islamic law? Well, how I feel about the Islamic law in London?
Do you feel like it should be implemented?
Don't know.
Actually, I'm from Pakistan, Kashmir, and there is all the Muslims over there, yeah. And 90% people like Shari'ah, yeah. And here, when I came in London, I saw here individually everyone have different concept of living here, and we can't force Shari'ah on any person here, yeah. If we like, we should adopt Shari'ah, yeah. Because what is Shari'ah? Shari'ah is the rules of Islam, the prime rules of Islam. If we believe these are right, yeah, we should adopt. We cannot force anybody on that, yeah.
Do I support Sharia law being implemented in this country? Or
In the
anywhere?
West, generally,
Well, in the West, first things first, I'd like to say the people who oppose Sharia in this country and the West, I would like to see Sharia system being implemented in our own countries first, and for the people who oppose it to basically step back and butt out of our affairs in our Muslim countries and leave our governings to ourselves according to the Sharia. And then when the time will come for the Sharia to spread, it will spread naturally. There can be no resistance against it.
Yes, I think it should be, because I think it's just like all the other religions. Like people should listen to it. We can tell them about it. If they like it, they can convert. If they don't, it's up to them. We don't have a problem, but they can't judge without listening to us.
Bismillah. Well, that was very interesting. We saw many, many diverse views there. One brother said that things change. We have to add some, Sharia is fine, but we should add some more modern things to it. Someone else said we can respect both the United Kingdom law or the American law or wherever you're at, but we can't forget about Allah's law, the Shari'ah. One brother didn't even know what Shari'ah was, which was very interesting.
This is the case.
So what are your comments on that?
Yeah. First of all, I respect Huda and Islamic media in general because they show this is randomly selected people and it represents really their opinion on that. However, on the other side, I think we should have asked them these questions after they know the difference between Sharia and the man-made law, because I'm quite sure that their answers are different. Third issue is that when you ask engineers about their decision or their opinion about whether we should operate on the heart of this patient or not, you will find their answers, of course, irrelevant, simply because they are not doctors, they are not surgeons, they are not specialized in the field. I think these questions should be addressed to the specialized people, especially the judge and all those, and the people of wisdom who, and the politicians, and we ask them. And there is a difference between the opinion, and if they say that we are going to take man-made law, they have to justify why. One of the good justification is that things change. I do agree. But whatever changes in this world is included in the Sharia. The guidelines is there in Sharia, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that, yes, this book covers everything in the world. So whatever things that will happen after 2 million years from now, if there are 2 million years, yes, it will be, we'll find the main guidelines. The crime is crime. What changes is the form of the crime, right? But stealing a computer is not different from stealing a lamb, stealing a cattle. It's stealing. It's active stealing. But so it is. It's the thing. People think that things change, and this will make the laws change. Yeah, there may be some modification, but the main guideline will be there. And I will, throughout the other questions, I will give you some examples, inshallah. But I think they were very good responses. Yes.
And very interesting.
Very interesting.
Sure. Okay, well, I think we'll take it to the studio audience now and see if anyone has any questions. Go ahead.
Really, the implementation of Sharia law, many people think that it's impossible to be implemented in our life. That they don't know how we can implement this Sharia in our life.
Okay.
Is it possible to implement Sharia nowadays?
First of all, possible or not possible. If it is not possible, that means this God that people worship, almost 1.7 billion people worship him, that means he's not a true God. Basically, he's asking people to do the impossible. And these laws have been applicable throughout history. And one of the examples now we can go and see in Saudi Arabia, they are applying it. Right? They are applying it. So if it applies in one country, it can work in another country, a third country, it can work everywhere. That's what they say, that, for example, if democracy works in one country, it can work in another country. That's right. So if Islam works in one country, it can work in different other countries. But some people would go further and would say that, okay, it's a harsh religion. If you cut the hand of the thief, that means you're going to cut the hands of lots of people, which implies that we have a lot of thieves in the world. Yeah, of course, this is the implication. That's what I understand. Yeah, this is not the case, by the way. You cannot apply the law without teaching the people about it. So they should be fully aware of that. Should be fully aware of the punishment that will happen. And it is enough that people would see one hand is cut and all the thieves will stop stealing. Absolutely, because it's so precious. And this is the wisdom of Almighty Allah. He knows best what makes people stop stealing and stop making adultery, to make the world a better place. You can cut the hand of one person, right? But you save the properties of millions of people. This is the wisdom. And I think that if people really know the essence of these laws, every one of them would say, now, not tomorrow, we want to apply it. For example, we know that the punishment of a person who fornicates, who makes adultery, is so tough. We know that he or she are stoned, right, until death, which is a very severe penalty, right? Yes. If you go into details, during the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, of course, there were some cases. Yes. When you see how a judge would prove this, for example, 4 eyewitnesses should see the crime.
Not just hear about it.
Not just, first of all, it's impossible. It's almost next to impossible. Yeah. I always joke with people, I say that if the prostitutes know about this system, they are the first one to perhaps embrace Islam. Because it will give them full protection. Yeah. Okay, so there are 4 eyewitnesses to see that. Second, it's not just, by the way, as he said now, not just to say that I heard about it. This is not a proof. Even if you bring a video, it's not a proof. Even if you bring a tape recorder, it's not a proof. It should be actual seeing by the eye. And the role of the judge would be to verify the matter for the benefit of the person who made the crime. For example, when he meets the first witness, he would say that, okay, what was she wearing when you saw her? Was she wearing, for example, a blouse that was pink or orange? He would say, I'm not sure. If he said, I'm not sure, the whole crime, the whole accusation is dropped. If he said it's pink, and he goes to another eyewitness by himself, and he asks him, right, was she wearing pink or orange? And if he said that she was wearing orange, so they are contradicting each other, the whole accusation is dropped. You see, it's almost next to impossible to prove a case like this. And during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, only 1 or 2 cases that were proved. So it's just a way, but because of the punishment is so severe, right? And people will be away from doing this crime, and this is the wisdom behind it. And that's why it is the rationale of this great religion is that some people should see the punishment to have the effect on themselves. But if you hear about it and you don't see it, you think that it is fun. It's not fun. It's so terrible. It's so bad. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that this will affect people and will make it a society free from adultery. What a dream. What a dream. Society free from adultery, at least public adultery. At least it can happen in secret. As long as it is in secret and nobody can prove it, there is no problem in this. But in public, this would be an ideal world. That's what Islam for, and this is the Islamic Sharia. This is just one example, and perhaps we can give other examples.
Is it appropriate then to say that the law of stoning in Sharia is not meant necessarily to be applied so much as to play on the subconscious of the human being?
No, it's both of them.
Okay.
It should be applied because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. And at the same time, by the way, this is the same law that was applied in the Torah in the time of Musa. So it's not something new that the Muslims brought because it came from the same origin. It came from Almighty God.
Very interesting. Do you have another question?
I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
Yes, I want to ask you a question that I always get. Like, people think that, you know, as the case of the adulterer, you know, they get stoned automatically, or the thief, his hand gets, you know, chopped off. What can you explain some of the guidelines? Like, someone asked me like a couple of years ago that, oh, how about if the person is starving and they steal bread, will his hand get chopped off?
Yeah.
Can you explain some of these guidelines?
Yeah. This is wonderful, I think. A good question was that if somebody is starving, that people think that that it's the poor people whose hands will be cut off. No. And in reality, it's the hands of the big guys. Because if a person steals out of hunger, his hand will not be cut off. Of course, because he is hungry. And that's why in the time there was a year, they call it a year of starvation, that to the degree that the Muslim ruler at that time stopped applying the Islamic laws at that time. Try to imagine that the power of the authority of the Muslim leader, that he can stop it because it was a year of starvation, otherwise there many hands will be chopped off. Yeah, because he understood the context of it. And some people may be obliged to save their souls, which is the most valuable thing a human being has, to protect these souls, so they are allowed to do this. And by the way, I will give you a very short story that took place. One Korean student of mine told me the story that one day he was in the marketplace and he was in a grocery store and he was buying from the grocer, and the salesman was selling him something, and all of a sudden a child came and he stole something and he ran away. So the owner of the shop, the salesman, smiled, yes, and the Korean guy got agitated and he was upset. Don't you go after him to get your money back? To get the thing that was stolen back? He said, no. Had he asked me, I would have given him more than what he stole from me. He said that he stole out of hunger and I can help him. I don't need to. So the person said that this is wonderful. Tell me about your Lord. And he told him about Almighty Allah. And just after 10 minutes, right, this Korean guy became a Muslim when he knew that. It's something, it's amazing, yes. So Islam would not cut the hands of people. In fact, the people will be helping each other. And those people who get the big money, right, which is not their rights, they are the ones who are subject to this, right? And
by the way, your story reminds me of a story. Maybe you remember, it was actually in the news that there was a Muslim store owner. He owned a convenience store, and a gentleman came in to rob him one night at gunpoint. But he didn't know that the Muslim owner also had a gun for protection. And so he pulls it out on the man, and the other man, he didn't have bullets in his gun, so he put it down. He said, I don't have any bullets. And he said, I was just robbing you because, I have some bills and I need some food and some milk. And so the Muslim guy said, then in this case I have to help you. So he put his gun down and went and got his food and gave it to this robber, and this robber became Muslim. He walked in as someone ready to rob the store, and he walked out as a Muslim.
And I wish that the media would show these examples to the people, to tell the people these are the Muslims.
Very well. And this is what Sharia is. This is the true
This
spirit
is
of
the Sharia. It changes a thief, all right, into a Muslim in just a few minutes.
Right. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. So don't go anywhere. You're watching Let's Talk.
The philosophy of Islamic law, a program for restoring belief and trust within Muslims' mind and heart, and for re-establishing a true concept about Islamic rules for others.
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to today's episode of Let's Talk. Today we're discussing the issue of Sharia and secularism, and we have with us in the studio a new guest now. We have our friend, our brother. He's a da'iyah. He's had many dialogues with people of different faiths and backgrounds. Brother Shadi Abu Yusuf. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So what do you think of what we've been discussing so far about Sharia, secularism? What are your thoughts?
Well, actually, it's a very interesting topic, and I was attracted by what Dr. Mamdouh said, actually, about why people in the West refused the laws of God. Okay, and he said something that is very interesting, that their religions are untrue. This is why when they started implementing the laws that are so-called God's laws, okay, they couldn't find help there. They couldn't find the answer. So they decided that we're going to leave this away. And this is actually what you see. Like if you're going to hold a Holy Bible, I'm sorry for that, and you start with the book of Genesis and you go into Deuteronomy and the whole books of the Torah, the first 5 books, you don't know who's the writer. Mainly you don't know who wrote them. Okay, like in Islam, we've got, when it comes to hadith and when it comes to sunnah, you've got narrators. And everybody's telling the other, and people are scrutinizing this hadith, very carefully. And if a hadith is weak, it is to be rejected. Okay, so you're not going to abide by the laws mentioned in this hadith. But when it comes to the Torah, for example, and they say that Moses, peace be upon him, he wrote the first 5 books. But actually, when you read the last book of the Torah, you find a statement like, and Moses died in Moab, and nobody knew where his grave was. Now, what does that mean? It means that...
Let me ask a question. Let me stop you right there. And this is an important issue because we've done a show now. We just recently did a show about Islam and terrorism. Now we're doing one about Shari'ah versus secularism. And these are all issues that they're throwing out at us in the Western media. Is this just a red herring argument? Red herring, catch the fish, send it down and chase this, and don't deal with crossing the river, Because it seems like the issue that's not being discussed, like for example, if I talk to somebody about Shari'ah, and I say it's a wonderful system and so and so and so, and it's God's laws and you should live by God's laws, they're going to say, prove to me that it's God's laws. If we talk about Islam and terrorism, we have to ask ourselves, why is the Western media bringing up terrorism? Their problem... and I'm asking here, is their problem really terrorism? Is their problem really Sharia? Or is their problem that they don't believe in Islam? Is their problem that they don't believe that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is a prophet?
I think so.
Is that the real issue, or are these issues? Yeah. Or we'll start with you, brother.
One thing that if they ask us to prove that the book that you have is the original book, it's very simple. And I think I was asked this question one time in one of the lectures. And I said that to this lady that asked me, I said, okay, I will make a practical experiment in front of you to prove that, right? And there were many audience, Muslims and non-Muslims. And I said that I am going to recite from the Quran, right? And it was the first time to go to this place. It was Oklahoma University. And I told them, now I'm going to recite, I'm going to make mistakes in my recitation, and you correct me, right? If you know the answer. And please, I would ask the Arabs not to speak. So the ones who corrected me are the non-Arabs. Then I started reciting, and everybody started correcting me from here and there and there. Said, where are you from? From Bangladesh. Where are you from? From South America. Where are you from? From China. And they started correcting me. Have you seen me before? No. Okay. I told the lady, I continued. And she said, this is enough. I said, why? She said that I got the message. I said, what is the message? The message, she said, that the message you're telling me that it is the same book that's everywhere in the world. And the proof is that they corrected me. I said, that's fine. I said that I would continue. She said that I'm convinced. I said, no, I'll make you more convinced now. I'll do the same thing with the Bible. All right? I got a Bible and I said that I'll start reading and you correct me. Right?
Nobody
and said, no, please. I said, is this a proof that the Quran is the original copy? Yes. She said, yes. And I said, who on the earth memorizes the Bible? So one lady was brave enough to raise her hand. She said that I memorized 2 pages. And I said, can you recite? She started reciting. I started reciting in English. And I said, I stopped her. I said, did Jesus recite the Quran in English? She said, no. I said, so this is not, did he recite the Bible in English? She said, no. I said that, so this is not the original Bible.
Exactly.
So she was convinced now. Now we need to prove to the people that this is the original book, it's unchanged. 9.3 million human beings on the earth everywhere, they memorize it. 50% of them are not Arabic-speaking people, but they memorize the book.
Well, I wanted to clarify, like, the point I'm making is that there may be some non-Muslims watching, and they'll say, okay, these laws are good and everything, but I'm not a Muslim, right? So why should I have to submit to this law? I mean, so what I'm saying is it not the most correct way to say, first, the Quran has been preserved, second, we can prove or at least give strong evidence that the Quran is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then start talking about this law is like this and this is like that. That's more of a correct way.
Yes, this is the simple logic.
Because I want to give that to our Muslim viewers who maybe are involved in da'wah, this sort of thing, that this is the method that
it's the first important thing,
would be practical.
Yeah.
Okay.
We wouldn't step into the issue of Sharia before we teach them.
Right.
Exactly.
You have to know about Tawheed and this sort of issues. Some non-Muslims in Europe and in other countries as well, and in non-Muslim countries, are afraid of their Muslim minorities because of this issue, because of the issue of Sharia. They're afraid that tomorrow there's going to be the adhan sounding 5 times a day, people getting their hands cut off, and so on. You know, this is what they're afraid of, and we've touched on this issue as well. And even if they're not afraid of the barbaric aspect, still they feel like, this is not my law. My country is based on the UK law or the American law, so what do we say to them?
Okay, if you're asking me, firstly, if we're talking about the background of those people, like mainly it's a Christian background. So when you go to the Holy Bible and you try to go deep into it, you find that many laws that are, like more strict than the Islamic laws are there. Like if someone is going to say a bad word to his father or mother, and this is in the Holy Bible, the punishment is going to be death sentence.
Well, forget about Christianity and Judaism for a second.
Okay.
Let's talk about the secularists. All right? The ones that believe in separation of church and state, and they say the UK or the USA, we're a secular country. So should Muslims be working towards Sharia in these countries or not? I mean, this is the tough issue, really.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I think, and you're going, of course, to take comments from Dr. Mamdouh. He's going to correct me if I'm wrong. I feel that a Muslim should fit in a society that is living in, and at the same time is going to abide by the laws of God. Like, for example, if the government wants me to tie to the safety belt while I'm driving my car, so I have no problem doing this. But I think there is no government in the world that is going to ask me to drink alcoholic drinks. Because if they ask me to do it, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to break the law of God. So it is something that goes back to every Muslim. Every Muslim who is proud and who is a true believer is not going to break the law of God ever. Even if he's living in a society that is so far and so different from his religion. Okay, so this way he can fit in the society. Like I live, I take care of the law of God. I don't commit adultery. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do bad things. I don't backbite. I abide by these laws. And at the same time, I can follow the laws of the country I'm living in as long as they don't contradict the laws of God.
Well, when you use that wording, and I'm thinking as a non-Muslim here, I used to be one, so I'm thinking, they say, what do you mean you can fit? Like, they're afraid of things like we said, the cutting of the hand, and that you're going to make them stop drinking their alcohol, and they're thinking, this is my country, this is the UK, this is America. So what would we say to that person?
What we would say, first of all, I will tell them that in Islam, we're not allowed to drink alcohol, okay, so we don't drink it, okay? I will advise him that even you're not supposed to do it. If you want to do it, okay. So I mean, there's no compulsion in religion.
This is your country. You can. I mean, it's your business.
It's your business, of course. What I'm going to do is to advise you. Okay, this is my job. I advise you. I tell you what my religion orders me to do, what God orders me to do, and if you take it, if you like it. And I think some issues are very easy because people in the West, for example, when it comes to alcoholism, they have serious problems there, and they have sessions for treating people who suffer from this. So they know the problem, and the answer for the problem is in Islam, which is like.
So if I'm understanding you, then the answer here is we're not trying to push Sharia on any non-Muslim or force anything. We can live in your society. Personally, I won't drink the alcohol. I won't commit fornication, even though it's legal. I'm living by Sharia myself personally, but I'm not going to force you to do anything because I respect your country and your law. Dr. Mamdouh, would you like to comment?
But at the same time, yes, to this. teaching people on large scales, and we have a wonderful experience with the internet. You can teach lots of things to people, and people would be aware of this. They need to be educated. And all these conferences that are going on everywhere in the world, with all the research that's happening now, you find that I was coming from the States, and there was a newspaper, I read it, it says that, that how the media people write. So they said that Switzerland is going to apply Islamic laws in banking system. So it was very attractive, so I started reading. They say that during this economic crisis period, what they did is that they started taking the interest 0.5, and their economy was not affected as it was affected by other countries. And they said that the assumption is if 0.5 was going well, so if we don't take any interest, that means it would be very acceptable. It would be wonderful. And this is one of the Islamic laws, as we know, that Muslims don't take interest. So they are themselves, by experimentation, they reach it that the Islamic banking system is the best because it doesn't take interest. So when people are exposed to Islam, when they see the researches, when they listen to the lectures, they would know, and it would be their own choices. We're not pushing it. We will have to show them the example, and they will get the benefit from it.
Very interesting.
In other words, we do the dirty work, and they get the benefit of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there any benefit to be found in the laws of secular countries, that things that we can learn from as Muslims with some of the more modern things, internet technology and all this, and laws governing those type of things? Are there things for us to learn from them just as much as there are things for them to learn from us?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. There, of course, when writing the laws, when you have the guidelines, when you want to change these guidelines into specific laws, they need to put according to some standards. See, because if they are not standardized, there will be difference in application. That's why you need to take these standards and you use them as tools, right, to put your guidelines in. Right. So we can benefit definitely from it. We benefit from their expertise, but we don't benefit from their laws because they would never, ever, ever be better than the divine-made laws.
Unless they're already,
we already have it. They already got it from us. And you can see that in any legal system in the world, they have a percentage of Islamic laws inside their laws, whether they are conscious of it or not. Yeah.
And some maybe be surprised at how much of our laws that they actually have implemented into their country.
Absolutely.
So what do you think? Do you think that there's things we could learn from some of the more secular countries?
Well, of course, we can learn from everybody, whether he's a believer or a non-believer, of course. I mean, and you can get, like the new ideas and the new technology, and you can take all this to help Islam and to help da'wah. Like I still say that the internet was one of the reasons why Islam is reaching every house these days, and actually was done not by a Muslim, I think so, it was by a British person. So yes, of course, you can learn from everybody, of course. Yeah.
One thing I want to ask is that it seems like in Sharia, there's a place for laws governing the soul. It's a personal law. There's a personal aspect of Sharia. Don't have hatred, don't have envy. This sort of thing. Something that secularism completely neglects.
Yeah.
Have we seen some very bad effects in secular countries because secularism neglects the spirituality of the human being? I'll ask you first, Brother.
Well, what I remember that I was talking to a French friend, and he was a guest in my house, and he is working for an organization for helping others in France. And I don't remember actually the name itself, but he said that it's a very important work. And I said, I'm sorry that we don't have so important organization like the ones you have in France and everything. He said, yeah, but because you're Muslims. I said, and what do you mean? He says, because you already help each other, because these are the laws in your religion, that you have to help each other and to feed the poor so they don't suffer. The poor in our country suffer, because if we're not going to help them, nobody is going to move from his own self to help them. So we have to have organization to help those people. But in your religion, you're just pushed to do that. Okay, you can't find a neighbor who is hungry and you leave him like this. But in the West, he may die out of cold and he doesn't have, a cover or something like this.
Well, I'm speaking more, and I'll address this now to Dr. Mamdouh. The soul is a real thing. It's something that needs to be nurtured, be taken care of. Things can affect it positively and negatively. As someone who is a non-Muslim and I became Muslim, I know that this is a fact beyond a shadow of a doubt. We see that in a lot of secular countries, people are full of despair. We have many people killing themselves, killing others, all of this sort of thing. Has secularism failed in that aspect?
You can measure it by many things. You can measure it by the amount of cases of committing suicide, for example. The highest percentage falls into industrialized countries like Japan and Switzerland and Western Europe and USA, whereas it falls down when it goes to Muslim countries to the minimum. And especially cases of collective committing suicide, such as what happens in Japan. And all these are reflections of despair, which is a reflection of neglecting the soul. Whereas in Islam you find even the worst or the poorest person would never ever think of committing suicide. Why? Because his soul had been nourished, right, on something that's very vital, on the words of Almighty Allah. And that's why you see the balance in Islam between materialistic life and the spiritual life, particularly the care for the soul. When we care for our souls, we don't do the prescriptions ourselves. We take the prescription from the creator of the souls. A lot of people deviated because they try to consult with other human beings who try to invent some recipes and some advice, right?
Like New Age philosophy,
New Age, whatever. You see all those philosophers come up with formulas that would destroy the soul more than it builds it. However, Islam cares from the very beginning, right, about the soul rather than the material, and then it keeps the balance in this.
Very good. Well, we're going to take a quick break right now, and we'll come back and finish this conversation, inshallah. So don't go anywhere. You're watching Let's Talk.
Those who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for those who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, for those who want to enter the Jannah, the paradise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for the believers. And that's why we need to learn and we need to get to know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, so that we submit ourselves to the orders of Allah. And this is knowledge that we need to learn. Why we're spending more time to look into the verses and to the meanings of the verses in depth, so that we can get to learn from it what we need ourselves to be steadfast, to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ponder over the meanings of the miraculous words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum, welcome back to today's episode of Let's Talk. Today we're discussing the topic of Shari'ah versus secularism. Before we go to our studio audience and start asking them some questions, I want to put my own question to you very quickly. And it's a very simple question.
How do you know it's simple?
Does ideal Shari'ah exist in the world right now?
I don't think so. I think there are some examples of applications, yes, but because of the human weaknesses, yes, which is represented, for example, in favoritism, and it's not applied in 100%. But even though in the countries that they apply it, and with let's say 95% or 90% or 85%, it's much better to find them there than in countries that they don't apply Sharia at all.
So then someone might ask, they might say, well, if Sharia is so good, almost all of the Muslim countries actually have some very serious problems that they're facing, whether it's with poverty or with crime, with being war-torn, civil wars and this sort of thing. So if Sharia is so good, and I'm thinking as a non-Muslim here,
Okay.
playing devil's advocate, why are the Muslim countries, most of them, in such turmoil and difficulty?
You can say Muslim countries, right, based on the number of the Muslims on them. But this is not the case because they don't apply the Sharia. If they don't apply the Sharia, how can you label them that? You can say that the country that's full of Muslims, a country that practices Islam but not applying the Sharia. In fact, in a very huge number of Muslim countries, they are in reality secular countries. They apply the secular law.
And perhaps that's the reason for the
Perhaps it is one of the reasons.
Okay. So what do you think? Do you think that perfect Sharia exists in the world today? Anywhere?
Well, actually, I agree 100% with Dr. Mamdouh. You cannot say that it exists 100%.
So there's no country we could point to and say, see, look how good we're
but
doing
we can
here.
we can point to some countries and they apply some of the Sharia and they are safer than others. Yes, we can.
So what you could say then is there are some, the closer the country is to Sharia, we can point out certain aspects. For example, this country applies this aspect of Sharia and look at the benefit. Maybe it has this problem here and that problem here, but at least in this area, which comes back to the religion, it's perfect. Do we all agree on that?
We can say yes.
Okay, well, that's a yes. We'll leave it at that. We'll go to our audience now and see if they have any questions. Go ahead.
Still, he said that this is a simple question.
Yeah, sure, very simple. The most difficult one.
Dr. Mamdouh, my question actually is that so far we have talked about the Sharia and you present it in the form of the punishments. And forgive me, if you introduced the Sharia in that way, that it's only punishments, actually I would never accept it. I would never say that it should be implemented. There's something missing. What about the preventive measures? What about the aspect that takes precautions and measures to prevent these crimes or these punishments from the beginning?
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful question. But let me clarify first, I did not present it from this. I was responding to a question from one of your colleagues. So I did not, if I am to present it out. Because the topic is Sharia, which means the law, right? So we are focusing on this. It is the law of the religion. It is the law of Islam, right? So this is the law of Islam. But when you introduce Islam, of course you begin, as you said, that here, we teach people about Islam. And they would love it by themselves. When the more they know, the more they love it. The more they know, the more they like. And then after that, we give them these are the guidelines. These are the red lines. These are the green lines. These are the orange lines. And these are the areas that you can move in. But once you come here, you should understand that there is the law. For example, if you apply this to the traffic, for example. Now, when you go to any country, right? Because they think that this is something universal, right? When you violate the red light, so they give you the punishment. They ticket you, right? Because you already know this in your own country. You can say that almost all the countries have traffic lights, if I'm not mistaken. So you would know that if you violate, all right, they, even though sometimes when they know that you are new to the country, they would, yes, let it go. This is exactly what Islam does. So, but Islam would teach you first and would take some measures to prevent this from happening by teaching people, right? By showing you the benefits of following these rules, you will get these benefits, right? And finally, they would apply the rule to you. Yeah. This is what Islam is. So you present Islam, you teach people, and the scholars call it istifadatul balagh. You teach people to the full until they know it. And that's why when a foreigner comes and makes the same crime that a local person does, he doesn't get the same punishment. Even sometimes he's totally forgiven because he doesn't know the law of the land.
And I don't think that we were presenting only punishments.
We
mentioned about Sharia.
We talked about economic crisis. We talked about the soul.
Yeah, I think it's.
But anyway, I think it's a valid question. Yeah, and we need to remind each other of this: that the law is not going to be applied overnight. It doesn't happen. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself in applying the laws he taught the Muslims for, you know that. 13 years in Mecca he was teaching the Muslims about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about paradise and about hellfire, until they loved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they started asking the question, if there is paradise and if there is hellfire, definitely there is a path for paradise and a path for hellfire. In other words, they started asking, well, how can we reach there without falling into this path?
Exactly.
So they at that time start telling them, this is halal and this is haram. This is halal and this is haram. This is legal and this is illegal. And because they loved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they were fully convinced that this is the way that would help them go there safe, right? They started following it.
And I think this comes back to that verse in the Quran which says that he succeeds who purifies himself and he fails who corrupts himself.
Yes, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى, right?
So in order,
قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا.
So before we start implementing the hudud and trying to push for this, we need to make sure that we're devoting people's hearts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being a beacon for hope and in the world, inshallah. Well, that's all the time we have for today, unfortunately. I would like to thank our studio audience for being with us. I would like to thank you, Dr. Mamdouh, and thank you, Brother Shadi Abu Yusuf. Thank you so much. It was a nice discussion. We hope to see you next time, inshallah ta'ala. Until then, I'm your moderator, Omar Dunlap, wishing you peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of